like to call the Bristol Select Board meeting to order for Monday, December 20th, 2021, 7 o'clock or 7:01. Review agenda for addition, removal, or adjustment of any items. And I think we have one. Is that correct?
We do have 1.5.
1.5.
The one is the recommendation to add Jason Hurd to the agenda. He submitted an application for a volunteer position. He initially expressed interest in the Conservation Commission, but they don't have any vacancies. Meanwhile, the Planning Commission does, and his skills seem to align very well with the Planning Commission's work. So my suggestion is to add him to item 1 to kind of combine those two topics.
Okay, I see him on Zoom too.
Yep, and the half is a correction to the agenda that the November 22nd minutes have already been adopted, so you can take that off.
All right, we'll nix that. Good, always nice to get rid of minutes. So let's do Select Board. Where would you like to put that? Would you like to have Kevin give his update from the Planning Commission, and then we'll go into have number 2 as interview with Jason?
1A and Jason?
Or 1A, yeah. Have Kevin go first, and then do Jason after.
He's not here,
but he's on Zoom.
Oh, he is. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh,
okay.
You just can't see everybody.
Valerie's pistol. She said that he'd be here.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to add that as 1A. Okay. Terrific. 2, overview of Zoom meeting operation procedures, rule for participation, mute microphones, etc., etc. I think we all know that. Public forum. Anything that's not on the agenda for this evening. If anyone has any comments, now is the time to let us know.
Jim would like to be recognized.
Me.
Hi, Jim.
Hi
Go
there,
ahead.
guys. Listen, I just want to thank the Select Board and all the town employees for the great job they do all year, keeping Bristol up and running. I wish you guys all a very Merry Christmas, and same to all the employees of Bristol. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Jim.
That's very appreciated. Thank you. And I appreciate, Jim, that you attend the meetings. It's nice to see your face every few weeks at the meetings, which is great. Anyone else?
For your car, Jimmy. I look for your car, Jimmy, up front. I said, oh, don't miss a meeting. You're on Zoom.
Okay, let's go into the department head roundtable. I see Bruce. Let's start with you if you're ready.
Yeah, I only have one thing. During the construction at the elementary school, the fire department loaned us traffic cones to use. And I forgot to mention that previously, and I want to thank Chief LaRose for the use of those cones. When I picked them up, we were missing a couple. So whoever borrowed the cones, if they would return them, that would be great. That's all I have.
Okay. Let's move on to Bret, fire department.
Thanks, Ian. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yep.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. No, we are happy to help out. So if they turn up, great. If not, we've certainly gotten our money's worth out of those couple of cones. But regarding updates, I'm on the agenda tonight for a budget presentation, but as we are wrapping up the year, and we had our last training of the year a couple nights ago, I would just like to take this opportunity, of course, to wish you all and your families a safe and happy holiday, and of course to the members of the Bristol Fire Department. We're coming off a really tough year. This year was, tough as well. We're all still in the middle of a pandemic, but they're an admirable bunch. They continue to go above and beyond in the performance of their duties and serving the community of Bristol and our guests and businesses. So thank you to all of them, and I'd like to wish them all a happy holiday. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bret. Let's see, Sharon.
I'm here.
Hello. Anything to report in your neck of the woods?
in my neck of the woods. I'm already receiving appropriations. I'm also received a candidate petition today. So election stuff is ramping up. We did a water read last week, so hopefully tomorrow I can get it downloaded into the system and we can get that out the door. You know, there's just a lot of different things going on. People calling with questions every day. You know, we have land records, we have, let's see, just a lot of things going on. The biggest thing right now is minutes and the town report. Not everybody has got their stuff in yet, so I think tomorrow or Wednesday was the first deadline. So if you could get it to me, that'd be great, so we can get started on that, because we're only going to have, election's going to be here before we know it, and we only have a month to get the town report all done and to the printer, so he can get it back in time for sending it out. And you know, I'll be ramping up doing the ballot that will have to go to New Hampshire to get coded into our cards so we can use our machine, our ballot machine. So you know, there's just a lot of different things coming up, and I've already received requests for absentee ballot for town meetings. So people are starting to be aware of it.
That's good. Regarding that, so the state is looking at potential to hold just informational meetings as we did this year. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that? I mean, obviously, it seems like you're ramping up to plan for a town meeting, but do we have what do we have in terms of not being able to do it for whatever reason?
Until they tell us we can do it that way, we're supposed to revert back to what was done before last year.
Okay.
Right
Yeah.
now, we haven't got any explanation if there's anything that's changed. So,
Right. Yeah, that's
Right.
because the state of emergency has been lifted, so we are back to what the state statute directs.
Right.
Right.
But I know that there's discussion that it might go before the legislature to see if it's changed again. And I guess it all depends on what the numbers are looking like and, you know, what the feeling is in the, you know, around the state.
yeah, one thing people are running into is the ones that have voting at schools, and the schools are saying, no, you can't use us. Some people are having to look out of town in order to
Right.
hold their voting somewhere else. So
Wow.
actually, we're lucky that we have this building. So, because other towns are going through a lot of things.
That's interesting to know. Okay. All right. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Let's see, the Treasurer's Department, our first update from our new town treasurer, Anthony. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name's Anthony Delmonico. I'm the town treasurer. This is my first time actually being at this meeting, so I appreciate the opportunity. I guess just an update with what's going on right now. We have the audit that is going on. The official start date for that is the 1st of January. So for the past 40 days, I've been uploading documentation and putting together the report for the auditors. So I would say that's the biggest thing that's going on right now in my office. Another thing is we're really starting to look at the way that the procedures in which we do things. Like I've revamped our depositing structure, looking at a couple other ways in which we operate and seeing how we can be more efficient and streamlined. So I am, because of the audit, I know for a fact I've been working here for 42 days. So I have been working pretty much nonstop, trying to not only get up to speed on how the town is, the going-ons of the town and how things operate, but also just doing everything that my office is supposed to do.
Right.
So
And I'd like to add that he's doing a great job, I think.
Thank you.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the update.
Thanks.
I think we all do.
Welcome aboard, Anthony.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here's your
I hope-
audit. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh,
Not
hopefully,
only getting your feet wet, you're getting your waist wet too.
I know.
You're jumping in all the way.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's see, anyone else? I don't see anyone else. No rec department this evening.
No, they're taking
Okay.
a break, and so is Eric because, well, not because, but just to acknowledge that Eric and his team did some long hours over the weekend to make sure that the Upper Notch Road was passable. And apparently, from what I've heard, they've done an amazing job.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, we'll move on to regular business. Item 1, Planning Commission quarterly update with Chair Kevin Hansen. Kevin, you're at the table. Hello there.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank the commission members that are present tonight and in support as well. We have been very busy in the last quarter. I think the way we left it last time was we had made some decisions on implementation tasks for the town plan that we were going to start looking at housing opportunities, whether that is, and that could be inclusive of you know, more affordable housing, better fit for housing in the village, that sort of thing. So we considered a couple different state grants. One was the municipal planning grant. Another one was a relatively new grant for bylaw modernization that really fits with what our housing concept might be. It has to do with updating zoning regulations and making them more realistic to existing conditions, if you will, and also be a better fit for making towns livable and affordable. So we ultimately chose to apply for a bylaw modernization grant, which, by the way, we'll talk about in a minute. We did actually get some funding, or will be getting some funding from them. The regional planning proposed that we do a multi-town grant application with Moncton and Lincoln. And unfortunately, there was a couple things that we weren't really comfortable with that. One being the timing. They had proposed this fairly late in the game, and we were pretty mature with our application, and felt that we might be at risk of completing if we didn't just keep going. And the other aspect that we had a little bit of trouble with is when you do a multi-town grant application, there needs to be an umbrella of mutual benefit. And we struggled, at least amongst us kids, not that we talked to regional planning a whole lot about it, about what exactly that would be. And we weren't really comfortable that we'd come up with a good, solid solution. So we ended up staying as a town submitter. And then we had applied for a 15,000 and change grant as part of that activity. We received word, I think it was last week, but just recently, given the interest of other applicants, the state has a few towns that they were going to partially fund, Bristol being one of them. So they were pulsing to see what if a $9,800 grant would be adequate. And you know, I think we can make that work. You know, we right along have understood there is some planning money in the town budget if we had to rely on that for supplement as well, both this fiscal year and next fiscal year. This grant will probably, I think it's got a life of 2 years. So it will cross a couple different budget years for the town. So we worked a little bit on that, pulsed with Jeff Lundstedt, who, by the way, Jeff did the heavy lift as far as the verbiage on the grant, did a great job. Jeff and I talked a little bit to Chris Curley as well, and we rationalized that we can make a lot of inroads with that amount of money, even though it might be a little bit light on some of the planned meetings that we anticipated we might have with a consultant to develop bylaws. So we're pretty happy with that. It'll help us go a long ways as far as realigning or re-understanding the zoning regulations. It will be limited to what's called the village planning area. So it'd be basically the village plus a little bit of the outskirts. I think it takes into account a little bit over on South Street, and it takes in a little bit account of the Plank Road as far as what's considered the village planning area, but it'd be predominantly the zones within the planning area, which is a great opportunity for us. We also applied for an intern with the UVM, what do they call themselves? Research Center for Research for Vermont, and laid out this activity that we're looking at for housing opportunities and how to realign housing within, and expressed the great opportunity that an intern could have seeing the process from a recently adopted town plan through working on some implementation items. And they were actually pretty excited with our proposal. So we will be having an intern at our disposal for the spring semester to start doing some background work. They're commonly called character surveys, but we want to understand the physical attributes of buildings and lots and setbacks and that sort of thing, as well as some of the soft attributes about what works well, what people like in Bristol, and that sort of thing. So I think we can get a lot of legwork out of an intern to refine some of that data for us. We talked about in our last meeting, there is a bicycle pedestrian advisory council being formed. We're not sure exactly how that folds out with our work with housing and whatnot. It may be more tactical as opposed to visionary, but we're interested in keeping a pulse on that committee and seeing if there's any commonality there. We have had a change in membership through the last quarter. Shannon Hill came on board this past quarter. She is part of the Hill Farmstead or Hill Farms, 4 Hills Farms. She will provide us with a great sense of agribusiness, as well as being a outside of the village resident. Unfortunately, John Cromer resigned for personal reasons. We're sorry to see John go. He was provided a lot of input. He had a lot of expertise with nonprofits and that type of work. And then I've noticed we're down 1 member, but we do have an applicant that you're going to talk to in a few minutes. So that'll get us back to a full board. We've been talking about training. We've got a lot of new members, and well, we've got Bill Sayre, who is almost like the godfather of planning in Bristol. And then Rob Rooker's had a few years here, but other than that, the balance of the members, including myself, we're kind of in our first term, that sort of thing. So it's a great opportunity for us to take some topics, if you will, and sort of formalize them and get a better understanding. So ideally, we would do a topic at least a quarter this coming year, maybe more, depending on interest and what we find for people that can talk to us and instill a lot of wisdom to us. So we're pretty excited about that. I personally am excited about the board, the commission, if you will. We've got a lot of good blood. We've got a lot of diversity as far as experiences are concerned, life experiences on the board. So we're going to head towards 2022 with a very busy year.
Terrific. Now, you sent out a number of months ago, since you guys were getting pretty organized in terms, you sent out information to various boards, including the select board, in terms of our responsibilities. I don't know how you want to sort of check in on that, or if you've been looking at that in terms of the projects that the select board has been working on, as well as what conservation and energy have been doing. I don't know if you can give an update on that.
Oh, I don't have anything to update. I haven't posted anybody this quarter. I had talked, we sent it out after that, and after the implementations were organized, which was like late summer, and I did pull some for the last quarterly review, and particularly the Conservation Commission was pretty active with their implementation tasks. And it slipped by me, but I think, that's something that we should be working on. Planning Commission should be working on updating over the next quarter of the first quarter of 2022, so that we can keep track of that and see how we're working and how those are developing. So yeah, we
Okay.
don't want to forget about those.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's just very useful. It's great to have you come to us and sort of have the list and have the concepts, or at least the goals that we should be working towards, and that helps form sort of the projects that we're implementing. So that's great. Thank you.
Kevin, I have to want you were talking about housing, and I didn't think of this before, and the only reason I think of it now is I happen to hear a piece on the news about the short-term rentals. Have you guys looked at that and how that affects housing here for long-term rentals, and whether they like take away from that long-term rental piece?
No, we haven't. We're in the very early stages of this whole analysis of housing space.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I mean, there's some certain amount of that is the rub of Airbnbs and that
Right,
sort of thing.
Right.
And we do have them in the village, and I know that anecdotally, not necessarily through the Planning Commission, but
Right.
we do have a lot of rental stock as well. So no, we haven't. We probably should keep that in mind, obviously, but we haven't really specifically sought out information.
Well, I just see that Burlington is starting to look at how to regulate them because of that concern of it taking away from the long-term rental capabilities for people looking for rent. For apartments, not. So.
We have, and not so much from that point of view, but we have had discussions a little bit about, Airbnbs versus, the regulatory burden of say a hotel
Right.
versus that sort of thing.
Well, there really
Airbnb.
is no regulations on Airbnbs right in
Yeah.
the short-term rentals like that right now. Okay.
Any further questions for Kevin from anyone, board or members of the public?
If you could look into a crystal ball and say to the select board what you could really use for next year, what would you think the planning commission could use? Besides the full board.
Full board's a great thing. And I think the members of the board are up for it, but if we chunk away at this thing, and again, I mentioned the grant is a 2-year thing, so this isn't a one and done sort of thing, but really look at housing and understand regulations. And this is my personal opinion, but if you look at our zoning regulations today, you can't build the village as it sets. And how we go about making those two things come closer together will be part of the task that we need to look at. I think as far as support from the select board, this dialogue is very important. You guys are obviously very engaged with what we're trying to do. With thinking about this grant, depending on how we start walking down that path, if we went back to a situation where, well, we need more money, we've got a budget line from this current fiscal year, and there's one in next year's planned budget, that could be very instrumental in upping the scope, re-upping the scope or upping the scope from where we are right now with the grant, depending on how much work we get out of our intern, how much the board can absorb, and how much we got to have somebody come in with some level of expertise. So I think the financial support is great. And I think just the ongoing dialogue is really important too.
And you actually almost moved my second question right into your comment there about you can't build the village the way, what was your comment? That you can't build the village now.
The way the zoning is set up, yeah.
Is, we walk up North Street, and we walk down west, there's some big homes through there. One across from your place beside your big home. try to be in B, it didn't work. It didn't. When we see ownerships of those maybe change down here on West Street, there's a few that are single widows that own those. Where do we see us with those?
You know, that is an ongoing discussion on the commission, and that discussion is not new. That's discussion.
I don't mean by no means. I think those people, they own them and they should.
Right.
That's-
But I think what you're asking is what happens to those houses as ownership changes. There's a couple of the extremes on the board, and it's a healthy extreme. Is one is we really don't want to end up being a bunch of non-occupied rental units that may or may not attract the right people or be kept up the right way. All the way to let's make the housing as efficient. I don't know if efficient, but allow the flexibility. The house can be used to whatever purpose that whoever owns it. And so those two extremes will be played out as we start walking down the path of reviewing how this, reviewing this whole housing exercise. And there'll probably be something in the middle. And it's interesting that the grant we applied to and a lot of the white papers with the state stress incremental approaches. So you don't go from here, you don't go from one end of this to the other. You take steps and check yourself, or you have a step plan. So I think we've got, like I said, we've got a range on the board that has the perspectives of everything from one extreme to the other. And I would anticipate we'll have a very healthy discussion about that and come up with something that will hopefully accommodate flexibility for housing, but won't take the character out of the village at the same time.
I mean, it probably didn't, it's really nice to be recognized, I guess. Was it some travel magazine, Ian, that I saw that Bristol was the top 10 towns to retire in the United States? And I asked a couple who just bought around the corner from me. I was over there visiting with them and introduced myself a month ago. And I said, what brought you all the way across from Washington, state of Washington to Vermont? He said, we grew up in Massachusetts and we used to shop up this way and in Madison County, we really enjoyed it and we wanted to move back. So, yeah. And she said the village is such a nice walkable village. That's what I really want to see continue.
Yeah.
Those houses are going to come for sale, and are they going to be bought by like that, or are they going to be bought by, out of town landlords don't see the day-to-day. They don't drive by that unit that they own. They just collect the rent check and stop there about once every other month. And then things happen.
And there's also in that extreme, we've discussed it and will be continued to be discussed. You've got people that live in a house that isn't well taken care of.
Yep. And
you've got people that own as a non-resident landlord, if you will, that take very good care of it. So there's a lot of subjectivity to that too, but that whole discussion always will be part of what we do and how we change it and what we want for precautions and safeguards.
And don't give yourself credit. I was on the old village zoning board with you back in the 90s we were on, so you aren't that much of a rookie.
Well, this is my second stint.
Right.
Kevin, this is Darla. I'm curious to know, is there any trainings or education that you feel like the board could use and support, or have you heard of anything that you thought it would be great, to have members of your board take part in to help broaden their knowledge or just to be more useful as a board member?
Yeah, there's a few discussions we've had. The whole concept of how regulations are laid out comes over time, but if you're just walking in, you've got regulations to affect zoning, you've got regulations to provide the vision, the town plan, if you will, and the mechanics and the subtleties of that whole system and how they're developed and approved and all that kind of stuff. So we will be looking for somebody to really lay that out from a statutory point of view, as well as how we're operating ourselves. We have planned unit developments, PUDs, as part of our regulations, and they are sometimes confusing to use. So, I mean, that's one topic that comes up, and the Development Review Board has great interest in that topic as well, not only in the Planning Commission. And then the other one that's been brought up is how to write town plans and zoning regulations to minimize the ambiguity. You know, you write down these regulations, if you will, thinking about what you want, but is it really clear enough that when somebody else looks at it, they understand what your intent is, as opposed to what they're interpreting it to be to their advantage, and that type of thing. So those are 3 topics that have already come up, and they're all great ones, and I'm looking forward to trying to arranging some expertise to present them to the board commission.
Great. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Terrific. Thank you very much for the update, Kevin. It's very appreciated.
Certainly welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to do it. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, and directly connected, really. So 1A, interview with potential candidate Jason Hurd for the Planning Commission. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Obviously, you've heard Kevin give some detailed updates to what the Planning Commission has been doing. And I know that you were interested in the Conservation Commission, and Valerie spoke to you and asked if you were potentially interested in the Planning Commission. So let's start just a little bit about yourself and then your interest in the positions.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, again, my name's Jason Hurd. I'm 42 years old, originally from Kingsport, Tennessee, but my professional life brought me to this area back in 2016 when I met my partner, Robin Housen, who's involved up at Zeno Mountain Farm in Lincoln. And she and I live in a house right now over on Church Street. I've had a pretty diverse professional life over the last 25 years. Got out of high school and immediately joined the Army at age 17. Spent 10 years in the Army as a combat medic, deployed to Baghdad in 2004, 2005. And during my military service, I was lucky enough to attend East Tennessee State University. I got a bachelor's in science, philosophy, concentrating on bioethics. And so when I left the Army and also graduated from college the same year, I got interested in sustainable farming. Spent a few years working with several for-profit and nonprofit operations. But I also began working with other nonprofits in the foreign policy arena because I was specifically interested in addressing our conflicts in the Middle East. So, you know, because of my combat experience in Iraq and, you know, a desire to help rebuild their society, I got really dedicated to the success of these organizations. So while learning about farming, the business, the planning, I also found myself diving into nonprofit strategic planning and organizational development, specifically to help the groups that I was a part of to achieve their visions of a better society. So these two threads of land planning and organizational planning kind of came together in my life over a few years, and that led me to New England, where I got a master's of science in ecological design from the Conway School in Northampton, Massachusetts, which they've got a program, and it's intensive, and it's based in real clients working at different scales. So I learned the complexity of the New England landscape while working with an array of clients, everything from the small site design scale all the way to the larger regional planning scale. So the Conway taught me a process, you know, something that I immediately realized could be applied not only to land planning, but also to organizational planning. So after graduating, I actually started a business with a fellow graduate of mine. We're a strategic planning and organizational development firm. We've helped a wide array of clients already. We've helped startups develop their business models and create sustainable supply chains. We've helped farmers do their crop planning and their grazing rotations while working on issues on their landscapes like access, circulation, conservation, erosion, those things. And we've helped a lot of nonprofit organizations analyze their operating environments, set goals, develop their roadmaps to success. So, that's a little bit about my experience, my professional life. And yeah, I'm a fairly new resident to Bristol, but it is a beautiful area. Once I came here, similar to what someone said earlier about their experience, I was just taken aback by the community and love it here. So wanted to just do my part, get involved in one of these commissions. So I appreciate it. And also regarding what Kevin said, I did download the town plan, looked at some of the goals that were articulated there, and I'm definitely interested in digging into these housing and zoning issues. So I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Questions for Jason?
I think he answered them all, and thank you for your service. Whatever question.
Thank you.
My thought was hire him. And again, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Did you say who you work for here? I didn't.
Yeah,
I started your own business. Okay.
Yeah, I have my own business doing strategic planning for different people, for profits, nonprofits.
Gavin, do you have any questions?
Okay. No, I don't. I'll make the motion that we appoint, if you don't want to have it in executive session, Valerie, I'd make a motion that we appoint Jason to the planning commission for the last vacancy.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Motion carries. Welcome aboard, Jason. Thank you very much.
Jason, welcome aboard.
Thank you all. Glad to be on.
Kevin's happy. He's got a full board.
All right, meeting? No,
That's great.
January 7th will be our next meeting. January 7th.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
Kevin
sounds
can get your details and he'll forward the agenda along to you. It's also posted on the town website and the Front Porch Forum, stuff like that.
I guess one question would be, probably the best contact would be the email you have on your application.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll use that then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Item 2, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding update.
As I mentioned in my notes, there really isn't much to update on. We're still recruiting members for the committee. The notice has been reposted, and the deadline for submitting letters of interest has been extended to January 19th for consideration at the Select Board's January 24th Select Board meeting. One thing you might find interesting, though, that I spent some time today poking around with this, I went through the requests that we've received so far, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 requests so far, totaling over $850,000, which is about 74% of what we've been allocated. Just to recap, and I didn't put it in my notes this time, and I have been the last few times. Bristol over 2 years is expected to receive $1.1 million, almost $1.2 million. And so of that, we've received requests for over 852,000. And that does not
right.
include any town projects, any town infrastructure projects like water or Basin Street or anything else, sidewalks, anything else.
Interesting.
Somebody's going to be disappointed.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good. I mean, I'm glad that people are putting forth their requests and their ideas. I think that's a positive thing. We just need
It
people to
is.
fill that committee now to be able to look at those requests. And of
Right,
course,
and-
look at the town's ideas as well.
Exactly, and then also the public outreach to see what other ideas are out there.
They don't want just the select board doing it, so.
Right, exactly. Okay, thanks for that update. Yeah, we have a member from the Energy Committee and Conservation Commission. And we're still waiting for a response for the Planning Commission to fill that committee. And then I think we have a few people who have applied or sent letters in to be on the committee, and we're extended a little bit just to get a few more interested people. And I have someone who mentioned it to me in passing when I saw them over the weekend. So I'll see if they'll put a letter in as well. But hopefully we'll get our total of 9 candidates that we need, and we'll be able to interview them next year.
Super.
Okay, let's see here. Let's get the time. Item 3, consider ACRPC request for municipal candidates for the Otter Creek Basin Water Quality Council.
Right, yeah, it's a mouthful. And there's background information posted on the website to explain more about what this is. It's a legislated organization, and that's going to be organized by the Regional Planning Commission. And I received clarification today from Mike Winslow that what they're really looking for is literally 2 municipal representatives out of the 58 municipalities. So it's not like they're looking for 2 from each of the municipalities. They're looking for a total of 2. And so folks who are interested are expected to fill out this online application through their website. And so the item on the agenda tonight is not for the select board to select such candidates, but I guess for the select board members to decide among yourselves whether you're interested in being considered as one of many municipal representatives, of which only 2 will be selected.
I want to clarify, when they say municipal, they mean somebody who's on the select board or somebody who's on a town committee. They don't mean any town president.
Right. Yep.
I'm not throwing my hat in that ring. I can tell you that.
Yeah, at first I interpreted it as though the select board would be selecting who would be representing Bristol in this new organization, but that's not what it is.
I guess we could reach out to, like, somebody on the Conservation Commission might be interested, or who does the New Haven River water quality stuff. They might be
Right,
interested.
yeah.
That would be.
Well, apparently
Richard,
the chairs were contacted through the Regional Planning Commission directly. I did ask Carolyn if she actually received something. I haven't heard back. But anyway, through this posting and this being on the agenda, folks are aware of it. So individuals who are interested in being considered as one of 2 municipal representatives out of 58 municipalities in this region, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think if Carolyn knows about it, she'll obviously pass that along to the rest of her members. So that's good. I think Richard Butts, he belongs to the Water Watch or the River Watch. So he might be interested. I know his schedule is busy though. Okay, thanks Val for that update. Item 4, consider errors and omissions report from the Bristol listers related to the 2021 grand list.
Yes, there's a memo there. And the correction that they've posted would increase the grand list by $4,100.
I make a motion, we accept the listers errors and omissions report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those against, nay. The ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. Now we're into budgets. Item 5, budget workshop, planning and zoning, fire department, listers, health insurance matters and other sections. So it begins.
I like that other sections, Val.
Yeah, well, that didn't quite pan out.
Okay, Val, how
since-
would you like to, since Bret is here, do you want to? Yeah.
Since Bret is here, I recommend we start with him in case he does not want to linger for the rest of the discussions.
Okay. And so folks know I'm the liaison with the fire department, and Val and I met with Bret this afternoon over Zoom and sort of went through his budget, and he explained the various items that have changed or that have stayed the same. And so he's bringing it in front of us this evening for the whole board. But Val and I were able to answer a bunch of questions and knock a few of those off his list. So hopefully this should be an easier process, both for Bret and for other department heads as they come and present this year.
And I've made Bret a co-host in case you'd like to share your screen.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly would like to just say thanks to Ian and Valerie for their time this afternoon. I found it extremely helpful to have the opportunity to sit down with representative from the board, our town administrator, to discuss the budget, proposed changes, etc., and not necessarily have to answer what in some instances might be some pretty tough questions, or maybe I'll come into a meeting and not necessarily be prepared. So it was just nice to have that opportunity to talk about this stuff ahead of time. So, but with that being said, traditionally, I know we go through this line by line, but I think I would like to ask the board, I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to review this, what are your immediate questions? And then I can fill in the blanks after that.
I have it online. I don't know, Michelle, Joel, Darla, you have the budget in front of you?
No.
Okay. It was a live link. I don't know if Michelle can pull it up, or if I'm happy to share it, or Bret, you can if you'd like, just so we have it on screen.
Yeah,
for
I
those who don't
can
have
certainly
it.
share it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the planning and zoning and the listers as live links, but I don't have the fire department as a live link.
Fire department, I saw listers and planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
My bad.
That's all right. So there
Can
we
you
go.
see that?
Barely.
Yes.
My eyesight's not that good.
When
Oh,
Zoom
yeah.
up, or,
That just
yeah.
has to do with sharing the screen, Bret, so.
That's better.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
There we go.
Sure. I'll do a lot of moving back and forth here on these lines. And so if I may, I would like to save the labor line till the end, because that's a broader discussion regarding Fair Labor Standard Act compliance, if that's okay with you folks. Okay. All right, well, moving down through here, as I discussed with Ian today, and Valerie knows, there are several of these lines in this budget that I don't have the information to input. I look to people like Valerie or perhaps Sharon or Anthony for that type of information. Case in point, the things that are highlighted, such as the FICA, Medicare items. And as you move down, we had some discussions about propane, that cost, what we could expect this next year, the telephone bill. I don't ever see a telephone bill. I just know we get one, and the fire department pays their share. As you can see, scrolling down through here, again, these additional highlighted items such as accident and disability insurance, property insurance, of course, the fire station bond payment. I'm not sure why we highlighted the communication tower lease. Maybe that was just for the discussion.
That was we were questioning the tax on that. I know that you spoke to Sharon about that, and we were thinking that as a town, are we tax exempt, or is this a specific thing that we would need to pay? Because it seems like it keeps going up. It's quite different in price each year.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you, there's something in their agreement that we agreed to when we initially did this tower, that we pay certain taxes if it goes up. And last year it was around $1,800.
Well, since we brought it up, so that would be this line 28 here. So for those of you who aren't aware, the town of Bristol, we are in a lease agreement for that big tower we all see here in Bristol. I'm actually not even sure who the current owner is, as it has exchanged hands several times. But we are a customer on that tower, as is our Bristol Rescue Squad. And for the use of this space, we sign a lease agreement. And those lease agreements, it's a 5-year lease agreement. We are currently in, I believe it's year 3 of our 2nd lease agreement. And as is clearly stated in that lease agreement, the expense goes up 3% each year, which we account for in our budget. But as I've continued to ask the question, and I'm sure Sharon has probably told me before, but I'm like, how do we end up so, so much over on this line year after year? And apparently it's because of some tax we're responsible for paying. I don't know what the tax is, what it's called. All I know is we're under budgeting this line, as you can see by those numbers. A couple of years ago, we budgeted 3,500. We paid 3,900. A year ago, we budgeted 4,000. We spent $5,400. And obviously we're on this track to do the same thing again this year. So, which is why you see such a significant increase in that line, and that's to account for this tax. So,
Sharon, can you give us detail on that, or does anyone else know? I mean, the specifics of that, so we can calculate what the amount will actually be.
I don't know if you can. It depends on how much they get taxed. I sent Bret the screenshot of page 2 where it talks about the tax, but I can't get to it with the screen sharing thing because I can't see any of my icons.
Oh.
So,
Okay. And maybe
And my guess is it's like a federal tax that they get charged, and it changes every year depending on FFA regs or whatever it is that control the towers.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is you're not going to have a set number or set amount.
I mean, can we ask them what their amount is, and get a better estimate each year? Because I mean, look at the jump that we're having. Are we now up in like the $6,000 or $7,000 range now?
So Bret, well, Ian, you might be that 58 or 5650 you have now. Is that just the 3%, or did you put in a cushion for the possible tax? Like last
I put
year,
in a cushion. Yes, I accounted for that possible tax in that number. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
yeah,
we can certainly reach out to the company, but as I think Sharon knows too, they're extremely difficult to connect with. Extremely. I mean, I've been on hold for 30, 40 minutes and still don't get through to anybody. It's really challenging and very frustrating. However, they are
the only time they're responsive is when they're looking for their money.
that's what I was going to say. Hold a check until they call you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things that we talked about in the meeting today was the idea of other options for this particular thing. I mean, you can see that it's going up. It's 28% difference for this year, and is it going to be even higher next year? And we have very little control over this, and we deal with a difficult owner of it. What are the other options, and when might we start exploring that in terms of putting something on our own building or something else? Like, Bret, do you have an idea of how you might want to explore that? Do you need permission to do that? Would you go ahead and do that anyway and just present something to us? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we do have a tentative plan to begin exploring this without pulling up the capital plan. We do have money appropriated in our annual capital plan, because there will be a significant expense tied to just exploring options, let alone doing anything. There's testing involved. It's the idea of putting a tower up anywhere is obviously in the emergency services world, there are many exemptions. I mean, the perfect world would be we could put a low profile antenna that's literally attached to the back of the fire station. Many fire stations have them. They're very small in their diameter. They're not tall like the one we have here in town, but it's really all dependent on the service. We have mountains, obviously our terrain is very difficult to deal with. But yeah, we're not alone in this. The Bristol Rescue Squad pays twice of what we pay. And we also have other issues at the tower site, as we learn each time the power goes out, that we do not have backup power there. And we're relying upon a text message from the service company to let us know that the power is out at our primary site, and we need to let our dispatcher know that they need to switch over to our backup site, which is in Middlebury. So yeah, it's challenging in the emergency services world. It's the #1 issue in any response. Well, it's apparently one of the #1 issues in my budget too. So, but certainly, yes, we do have a tentative plan to explore other options. What those look like. I've heard some creative ideas over the years, but it really is going to come down to those experts coming in with their equipment and saying, this would be the most ideal spot for an antenna.
Okay.
And that's a couple of years out. I very much envision us entering into definitely into a third 5-year agreement before we get to any type of other resolution to this. I do not see this being resolved in the next 2 years. It's impossible, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brett, just a quick question. I know we at one point were talking about a New Haven option. Is that kind of dead in the water, or are they still like researching that?
Well, I personally never had a conversation with them about that option. I don't even know if they utilize it, Michelle. But one of the concerns I think I know the answer to is there backup power there? Because wherever we go, we need to not only have backup power, we need to have 24/7 access to our equipment so our vendor can service it. So those are logistics, that's just a discussion. It's never taken place. I don't know what their long-term plan is for that site. Because I believe they use the Chipman Hill in New Haven, in Middlebury. But I'd have to check with Chief Mayor on that. And I'm certainly willing to have that conversation with Chief Mayor about what is their long-term plan for that tower. Are they looking to possibly, use it as a revenue source for their organization? So that's a question I'll definitely ask.
Brett, first of all, the tax on that, when I was a lister, Green Mountain Power, Central Vermont then, and telephone companies, and utility companies like the tower, they pay a utility tax to the state of Vermont, and it does vary year to year. That's not, when we think tax, we think a sales tax. That's not a sales tax.
No.
That's a utility tax to the FCC, to the state of Vermont. And my second question was, so we are going to start on year 4 of the tower, or we're in the middle of.
Yes.
And I know that I've mentioned the water tower up on the hill a number of times. Do we know what the elevation of the water tower versus our tower now, the height wise?
I don't. And again, this, I just don't, it's not even worth my time to speculate, because unless you have the right instruments to test these, how the radio frequencies travel. I mean, obviously there's a mountain in the back of the water tower, it's resting right against it. So unless you get above that ridge line,
Well, that's the question. Is that what the money that you got in the capital that you want to explore?
It's to do a study. It's exactly what it's for.
Okay.
So, yep.
Because the tower where it is doesn't get over the hogback to get on the other side of Fuller's Flats and Ireland Road either.
No, unfortunately, there's no perfect solution in our mountain estate. But obviously there are some sites that will be better than others.
We all read about the city of Virginia's old water tower there, and I was in there today, and I'm looking up at it and counting how many cell towers are on that thing. They make money hand over fist on that old rusty tower next to the town offices. And I'm wondering if we have a moneymaker up on the hill that we just don't know yet to hang different towers on, satellite things on. So just a question for the board, really, not for much Brett. Okay.
So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have many answers on that for you. The only thing I do know is what it's currently costing us and what we can anticipate us costing us next fiscal year, which is why you see such that significant increase. And that's to actually account for what we're actually paying year in and year out. But it's definitely on our radar. It's a concern of ours as it is of yours. You know, we know nothing's free, but we would like to find something that's a little bit more sustainable and possibly benefit, you know, some of our other departments in town. You know, I don't know if the police department has other needs or if the public works department has other needs regarding, you know, antennas and such, but certainly something when we explore it, we'll be exploring it as a town.
Okay. Brett, let's go on, Joel.
Maybe this is a question for, probably for Valerie or Anthony, he was still on. The fire bond payment, is that still I know that's a payment, but have we reverted back to a so-called mortgage now or no?
The bond.
That was a question that we asked ourselves today, and we don't know the answer yet. We were advised that the interest rate was expected to change around this time, and I don't know if we've received what that new rate or perhaps term is.
Well, that's why I asked that question. Should we be looking into secure? I think that's been the first 5 years of floating, I won't say a floating interest rate, but whatever the market is right now, it's been low. I wonder if we should convert that to a 20-year or how many more years and convert that to a solid interest rate.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question.
Is there any other questions on the tower lease?
No. Do you want to talk about, Brett, since one of the biggest changes that you're looking at is line 10?
Yes.
You want to take a just sort of walk us through that as you did today?
Yeah, sure. So line 10 here. So line 10, what that reflects is what is currently called OSHA requirements, and I'm also recommending a change in name on this line. So OSHA requirements was just that. There are things very specific to meeting very specific OSHA requirements on an annual basis, such as the flow testing on self-contained breathing apparatus, fire extinguisher testing, the breathing air quality test, and the annual inspection on the compressor system that fills the air cylinders that firefighters breathe from. Using this line and combining lines 26 that's currently titled hose service replacement, and line 30 titled equipment service and testing and maintenance. So all very, all similar. It's essentially just taking these three lines for annual services on equipment that we know what these are year in and year out. I mean, we know we have to do services on particular pieces of equipment, whether OSHA says we need to do it, or it's just something that needs to be done for the town's ISO rating. But again, so lines 26 and 30, I'm proposing that we eliminate them, if you will, and taking the money that was allocated in those lines and moving it up here to line 10, which is why you see that 58.4% increase. And again, just to show you an example, we'll change the name of it to firefighter equipment service and compliance testing. And there's a list of some of those annual services, such as the ladder and hose testing, which is tied to our ISO rating, hydraulic pump testing, the breathing air compressor, air quality testing, flow testing on our SCBA units. The firefighters are required to that wear a mask, a face piece. They have to go through a fit testing annually. So that's what those monies there would be allocated for. So that's my recommendation, that we consolidate those three lines into one. But as Valerie brought up today, somehow I guess Valerie and her skills we want to build a show for, the next few years, what we spent in those previous years. So how do we do that? How do we combine those three lines and still show that picture to everyone?
It won't be complicated. We just need to remember to do it.
See,
Yeah.
it won't be complicated. You heard it.
Simple
Yeah,
formula.
I think generally the lines are left in until they're zeroed out over a couple of years, and the new ones are made, I think, so.
That's one way to do it.
Brett,
Yeah, like,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I said, question I have, I don't mind all the change and everything, and it says, most of those all keep saying testing, 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 compliance and testing. And then you took out the one that says hose replacement. Does that concern you about, with them, we test everything, but we don't have and a lot of the hose didn't test good, but we don't have any money left to, because we spent it all in testing to buy any.
That's in the capital.
So that's a great question, and I've given that some thought. So we currently have some monies allocated in our capital budget for hose replacement, primarily, with the anticipation of the new pumper that requires some new hose. But in my experience with dealing with fire hose over the years and doing compliance testing year in and year out, that hose does have some longevity to it, providing you properly care for it and test it. And when we do need to replace a piece there, those are things we do have. I think we have an equipment line, and I have my supplies line where, when those, let's call it an emergency purpose, comes up, we blew a length of 1 3/4 hose, at a tune of $175, we could go out and replace that length of hose. So that was my thought process when I was doing this.
I see where you're coming with that. Yep, good question. Good idea. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And would nozzles come out of there too, Brett?
Again, the nozzles are currently, yep, those are big ticket items, and they're currently built into our capital equipment plan. Like we are anticipating the need for a couple of new nozzles for the new pumper. But also, again, depending on the year and how things are going, if our supply line is in good shape, and we have had the need to replace a couple of nozzles over the last 5 years, we've been able to do that out of our operating budget with, not requesting any additional funding specifically for that purchase. So, it's hard. It'd be great to draw a line for every single thing, but it's also, that would be really challenging to do. But I think as long as we continue to spend this money responsibly and plan for those larger purposes and our purchases and our capital planning, I think we're going to be okay. Well, since we got talking about it, is there any other questions on the fire bond payment line? The interest questions?
My own question is, I know the bank it's at, and I don't think we've taken as a true mortgage now, so we have a payment exactly the same amount every year for so many years. I think it's still paying this down.
Well, you can see it's different every year.
Yeah, and that's what,
It's been different. every
that's
year.
what, I think it was, the first 5 years was just, we were paying so much
Yes. that
with
payment.
no interest yet, or with interest. Like your house payment, go 25 years at 3.5% or something like that. And I don't think it's been said. I think it's a question we need to ask the bank.
So what's,
And I
Jill,
certainly
what's-
look to you folks.
yeah,
What's that? I'm good.
sorry about that. I was gonna say, Jill, what's your question? And let's add it into the sheet here, just so we remember it.
Ask the bank whether we're still at a bond or whether it's been converted to a mortgage.
Okay.
Right.
And
Is
can
that
it
a
be
flexible
converted?
bond payment going on, or going to continue? Or is it going to be locked into a certain amount of interest and a bond payment once a year? I guess
Now,
that's,
is that up to the bank to make that decision, or do we have to request that?
I don't know that either, Darla.
Well, for some reason, I thought for a bond, you couldn't convert it.
I don't know.
Al, is that right?
See, it's not a bond payment. It's a payment to the National Bank of Middlebury. It's not a bond payment.
So
like
it's
the-
not truly
to
a
the Vermont
bond.
Bond
then.
Bank. No, I don't believe it is. It's not a bond payment to the Vermont Bond Bank.
So we need some advice.
We need to get some information then.
I know the people that asked tomorrow if you want me to.
It is to the National Bank of Middlebury, so it's not through the bond bank. So there is a little bit more flexibility.
Okay.
So do you want Joel to find out?
Or you want to find out,
Or
Val? It
do
doesn't
you
matter to
guys
me.
want-
I think the treasurer's or the clerk's office should make the
Yeah.
call and get the information directly.
Yeah, I figure I have a couple people that I can talk to on the national, the bank. So I'll just make a note of it and
Thank you.
have some conversations.
And I
Great.
think there is a spreadsheet in there, in the folder for the fire department bond bank that went out like 20 years of how much each payment was gonna be.
But
we
it
can-
stops
Yeah, too.
at August of 2021
Yeah.
with no new information. It just says that there's going to be a new interest rate sometime after that, but before July of 2022. That's all
Oh,
we know.
That's what I remember, 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so something Anthony can look into. Fantastic.
Val, this is a question for you while we're on this screen. Their workers' comp, why did it jump so much? I mean, why did we only budget 1,800 last year and we're jumping to 4,400, you know?
Right. Well, there's a tab at the bottom of the screen called VLCT passive. That's where the formula came from to get that figure. So that comes straight from VLCT. Why it changed? Because some went up and some went down.
Okay.
And it might have to do with history, past experience.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew it usually fluctuated because of that. I just didn't know if there was something we missed. That's all.
And Brett, can we slide back up? Not a big deal, but the propane one, Brett, that might be more just thinking, because that's the generator that runs once every Wednesday night, right?
Yes.
Off that and a little bit of cooking in the kitchen. And we didn't do much cooking because of the pandemic. That could be just the way they were paid. You might have paid one, like 3 bills and, June 30th backwards to July 1st, and then only 2 the following year. So that's what I'm thinking.
And that was the question we raised during our meeting today was, is this just because it shows we've already spent 99% of our budget. But are the tanks full and they're going to last us through the rest of the year?
1,000 gallon propane tank out there, and they may not fill it again this year.
Yeah.
Until
Right.
June 1st.
Well, that's
And did we-
pre-buy.
We did pre-buy this year.
Yes, from Jackman's, and I can send you guys the spreadsheet of how much we've spent on all our accounts.
But that's pre-buy so much a gallon, right? But they
Yes,
might have-
we paid for it in the fall, in September, I believe.
Okay.
So is that a number that Valerie, you or Sharon would look into, that the spreadsheet, or speaking to Jackman's, or is that something you'd like me to
Yeah,
pursue with
I
them?
can tell you how much you've used and what the costs are. I can give you that.
Okay, yeah, just that number is not accurate. That's a number that was just for the budget planning purposes and looking at previous history and what we've spent to date, but obviously it's not a true reflection on where we probably are today. So, so there's definitely need to get some better information on that line. Okay, moving on down. So I'm going to go back up towards the top of the sheet here. Dues, firefighter dues. So you'll see an increase in dues here. So annually, the town has supported our mutual aid association, how we get mutual aid fire protection from our neighboring departments. Everybody pays association dues, which is held fast at $10 per firefighter for as long as I can remember. And it's they voted to keep that for the next year. So so that's pretty minimal expense, our mutual aid dues. And then we have our Vermont State Firefighters Association dues, which is $16 per firefighter. The big benefit there is it's the death benefit. So in the event of a death of a firefighter, and this is not a line of duty death, well, certainly it would apply, but if a member passes on for other causes, any reason, their family are entitled to this death benefit. It's nothing you're gonna retire on, but it is a lump sum of money that we've definitely gotten it over the last few years, for certain firefighters who have passed away. So everybody's eligible, and it's really minimal paperwork to acquire those funds. So, and then what we're proposing we add this year is membership to the National Volunteer Fire Council. Now that $21 per firefighter, that's a reduced rate, and it's because we would be joining under the umbrella of the Vermont State Firefighters Association. So we get a discount. There too, there's a very significant death benefits associated with that membership, but I'll say more importantly, for day-to-day operations, they offer for their members that they have an online training site. As we continue to move forward in the future here and train, they're as I was telling Valerie and Ian today, many of the requirements firefighters need to meet are some things that are really, classroom, if you will, things that can be accomplished online, at their own pace, at a time that's convenient for them, and it can be tracked through this online system. It's just an opportunity to get access to additional training opportunities for our members. It's a resource. It's a professional resource. They have offer a lot of great information and provide you materials if you want to get into recruitment and retention type events. Again, it's a resource for firefighters. It's a resource for a volunteer firefighter's family, training opportunities, and death benefits. So we're just proposing that we include that in this next fiscal year's dues line, the $21 per firefighter to get everybody membership. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. All right, we already talked about the equipment and service testing line supplies. So we are regularly overspending this line each year. We're doing okay so far this year, but I did put an increase in there of $500 this next fiscal year. The electricity, again, I look into Sharon for numbers, what our usage is, what can we anticipate spending next fiscal year. So I just simply carried forward the number we're currently using of $8,000. But as you can see, the year before we went over. So why such a significant overage? I don't know.
Well, this year, I think it's more down, Brett, because now that's part of the solar farm, fire station.
But you still get charged for the solar. You still get
Yeah, but
charged
I
for
saw-
the solar.
But I saw the electrical bill this month is considerably down versus.
Right, but you still get charged for the Bristol South Solar too. So it's not just from GMP, you're also getting the charge from Bristol South.
We are getting some credit for solar.
Right.
Correct,
But
correct.
Not
It's-
as much as I think
We
people
were
thought.
led
it
to
was,
believe.
but yeah,
No, we knew it was only the 10%. We knew that. It was just part of the agreement. So, we get, it's 7,000 a year. But of course, that's a very small percentage of what everything added together, what our bills are. So yeah, we obviously, it'd be nice to have more and eventually, at some point we will, but we're not there yet.
Well, there's 10% right there, 8,800 versus 8.
Right. And it's split between multiple buildings. So it's a small percentage off, each of the buildings that it handles.
So is that a number, Valerie or Sharon, we can get a better handle on?
yeah, I have a spreadsheet for that, so I can let you know that as well, Brett.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Propane, we discussed that. We're gonna look into that. The apparatus fuel line, just gonna level fund it. Obviously last year, our fuel consumption was down because of COVID. Things, they kind of went quiet for a long period of time, which we were all okay with. But certainly call volume has gone back up. And that's not just the fill up. We do have a diesel fuel tank on site over there that when we do fill that, there's a significant expense associated with that. So like to level fund that. Phone, we've talked about dispatching. So our dispatching services are through the town of Shelburne. It's the Shelburne Police Department Dispatch Center. They've been doing our dispatching for 20 years anyway. They dispatch for the majority of Addison County fire departments. I spoke to their town administrator, and a year ago, they gave us a fixed rate, if you will, of this $3,700. They came to us, and based on our annual call volume, because we are billed per call. I want to say we were paying like $33 or $34 per call. So every time we're dispatched for one of those 135, 140 calls, it costs $33. So they came up with a number. This 3,700 was around what we were generally paying each year, and we said, oh yeah, let's fix number. It's great for budgeting. Love it. And the advice he gave me recently was you can add 3% to that number, which I did. Plus, one thing we have not been accounting for in our operating budget, which I spelled out here, that $250 expense for the use of the Chipman Hill repeater right here. So we actually pay we get invoiced by from the town of New Haven Fire Department, because they're the ones paying the bill, and they simply invoice us for our contribution towards the use of it. So it's just a $250 fee, but we haven't accounted for that in the past. So I wanted to outline it in the budget and add it to that line.
Okay.
Active 911. So that's tied to a firefighter's phone. It's $13 per phone, budgeting for 35 devices. Just to be clear, the town of Bristol does not provide firefighters telephones. Those are their personal cell phones. We are just paying for the cost to have the service on their phone. What that is that's tied to our dispatching center. So when we are dispatched over our pagers we wear on our belts, we also receive a notification through our phones. But more than just that, it's a real-time information system. Firefighters literally push a button on their phones stating whether they're responding, whether they're available, are they going to the fire station, are they going directly to the scene, and it maps it. So as we're getting dressed in the gear room at the fire station, preparing to board the trucks, and I'm doing my size up around the room, like, okay, where's my driver operator? And I'm not seeing one physically there yet. Well, all of a sudden I look up at the board and I can see Mr. Coffee driving down the road. So it just provides you that real-time data, and it helps with making decisions. And in addition, this also stores any pre-plans we have developed for businesses around town, businesses that have a Knox box. We keep like contact information for that particular building on this system. It has all of our hydrants, both municipal and our dry hydrants mapped out on it. So it's a very valuable tool, and certainly would like to continue utilizing this service. Any questions on that? Okay. Building maintenance. So for anything that essentially goes wrong with the facility that we did not plan for, would go into this line. If we needed to replace a door handle, or we had to do some adjustments on the garage doors this past year, that's where those things would fall in. Actually, we need to redo some of the weather strips on our garage doors. So those type of expenses will come out of that line. Mowing. So here's another line. It's a significant increase. And the reason is, it's not because I'm asking for whomever the town contracts with to do more mowing or yard cleanup. It's simply because we're not budgeting for the services that were being provided. So if you look at the numbers, 2 years ago, we budgeted $900, we spent $1,800. Last year we budgeted $1,700, we spent $2,400. And I don't see why we wouldn't not be on track to do the same this year, because obviously spring will come before the end of the current fiscal year, and there will be mowing, there will be this annual spring cleanup. So I know you guys, I think you do a one contract with one particular vendor, and I don't know how they break it down, but this line accounts for what we're currently not accounting for. So that's why you see such a significant increase there. And if somebody wants to dig into that a little more, speak to our current vendor, please, by all means. All I see is what it's costing us, and we're not budgeting for what it's costing us.
Now, are we set to send out,
Not this year.
not this year?
I think we
Got
did them
another
last
year?
year. We did them last year.
Brett, every 3 years, Brett, we usually send out and have them. give
Okay.
us a new figure, so.
Okay. And obviously I'm not involved with that. I just, then every once in a while, Sharon will put in front of me a portion of an invoice for the fire station's contribution towards the bill, if you will. So yeah, I again look to you folks for that type of information. And if Sharon tells me I need to pay it, I pay it. Custodial. So these figures are based on the services we've received in previous years. And last year we did not perform several of the annual services we had been performing, such as the floors in the fire station aren't getting redone. The windows aren't getting done. These are the things above and beyond your routine cleaning, if you will. So currently the town contracts with Mr. Mike's cleaning service 6 months of the year. They come 1 time per month. And for 6 months of the year, they come 2 times per month. We're in the 2 times per month year. It's winter, more traffic, snow, ice, salt getting tracked in. So that's our current cleaning, and the firefighters make up the rest of it. Moving down, annual services. So this is your facility expenses, excuse me. So it's a lot of information here, but everything you see here in this line are services associated with the building. The compressor that supplies air to the air brakes on the trucks, that has to go through an annual service. Our washing machine, that's that washing extractor, that gets serviced every year. UniFirst, the floor mats, same vendor you use down at the town offices. Crystal Rock for our water cooler, coffee stations, pretty insignificant amount there. Working with our current fire extinguisher vendor, Impact Fire. So like other expenses we found out about this year, there's a lot of 5-year expenses due on a building that's 5 years old. So they broke it down for me. I'm not going to go through them all, but you guys can read those expenses for yourself. They're not large amounts, but they do add up to a larger amount. Again, a lot of that's associated with 5-year testing. As we go down here, this air vac, this 4-stage filter pack, I made a separate note over here. So there's large gray boxes that hang from the ceiling in the apparatus bay or the garage. Those are the exhaust system. That's what removes all the nasty toxins from the air, so we're not breathing that stuff in. Filters get replaced on them regularly, which is a task performed by the assistant fire chief as part of his regular duties. But every couple of years, you have to do this major 4-stage filter pack exchange. And as you can see, there's a significant price tag associated with it. $2,345. And then another significant expense that's coming up is the 5-year sprinkler inspection, which is $1,700 is a quote I received. So with that being said, in trying to do my part to either keep the increase in the budget down, looking at my numbers, I think I can cover the cost of this 4-stage filter pack and the cost of the 5-year sprinkler inspection under the current fiscal year budget we're in. And how I think I'm able to do that, and we'll get to that line, is due to our apparatus maintenance line. As you know, we sold a very old fire truck that was costing us quite a bit of money annually to keep it on the road. So I think we're going to have some monies left over in that line, and we can help account for some of these expenses just to try to keep next year's budget down. That sounds good to you guys? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brett, I have a
Any
question.
questions? Yeah,
Yes,
please.
and I wish I thought of it this afternoon. The VLCT visited a number of our facilities for loss control purposes to identify things that need to be addressed to prevent mishaps and other things. And one of the recommendations that that was identified for the fire station was the mezzanine ladder.
That's correct.
Is that reflected in here by any chance?
It is not reflected in here. I haven't done a whole lot of research on the cost, you know, because there's the question, would we want to consider a fixed ladder? And when I say fixed, one that's fixed but can be like raised up out of the way so you're not running into it when you're not using it. But, you know, I just mentioned the changing of those filters. Well, you know, currently the assistant fire chief is running around on a 10-foot extension ladder, 10-foot step ladder, or possibly even standing on top of a truck to change these filters out, because that's what we have today to access those things. So do we get a mobile ladder, if you will, so we can do things like that in that area that has such a large ceiling? I don't.
You're looking at something like that Mount Abe used to have when they changed the light bulb in the gymnasium. They stood it up on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not preferred, because that particular item that takes up floor space. You know, where a mezzanine ladder that you can raise up out of the way when it's not being used, although it's, you know, it limits what you can do with it, it certainly would be ideal. But, you know, we need to find out code wise, so, you know, are we supposed to be using something different to access like these airbag systems? You know, does the 10-foot step ladder from, you know, a hardware store that we paid $100 for, is that, are we in compliance by doing it that way? You know, if someone was to fall, I don't know the answer to that question, Valerie, but it's certainly something we need to look into a little more. But back to your original question, no, this budget does not reflect such an expense. Neither does it reflect the other item, which wasn't a high priority item. They mentioned the fire department might want to consider getting some type of, I don't know what they called it, had to do with the furnace, the hot water heater. You know, if it was to fail, we receive an automatic notification, like through our smartphone, that we have a problem before, you know, we have this catastrophic failure and water damage that destroys, you know, sheetrock and everything else in the building. That was the other item. So yeah, a couple of items there, but neither one of them of which are reflected in this. I don't know, Valerie, would either of those items be eligible under the VLCT annual, you know, grants, the 50-50 match? I don't know.
Quite likely, yes. Yeah, at least the ladder would, I would think.
Yeah, you know, a ladder that costs a couple $1,000s. It'd be nice to get half of that paid for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, something definitely on my radar I need to look into, but not accounted for in this budget.
Okay.
If I could work with you or Valerie or both of you on it's a water sensor we have in all of our branches in our furnace rooms.
Oh, you do? Okay, I'd love to hear what you guys use. Yep.
But you have to have an alarm system. You have to have an alarm company that answers the alarm and then texts you. You know, calls you and says you got water spilling out.
We have an alarm company. We pay for a service, and so the question would be, can you tie
like
it
the
to
alarm
that?
company that called in the night we had the sprinkler go off, or some night
Yep.
Okay, I'll work with you on that. It's not a very big little item, and it ties right in great. Okay.
Good question. All right. Moving down. Covered these. No. What else? Looking to level fund the radios and pagers. This is working out well. We had, it's not reflected in this budget here, but we just an invoice was processed for the couple of new portable radios, you know, which significant expense associated with those, plus just annual maintenance on pagers and replacement of a couple of those. So looking to level fund the radio line. Fire prevention, we're kind of always in the ballpark every year. That's what pays for the activities and things we do with the elementary school each fall during National Fire Prevention Week. Uniforms, looking to level fund that line. Fire equipment, PPE, that's specifically our what we call our turnout gear. So we track use expiration dates on this gear, and significant price tags, as you guys, most of you know, is associated with a set of firefighters gear. It's pulling a number out of the air. You could say it's about $2,700 to put a pair of pants and a jacket on a firefighter. So it's big ticket items. Then that apparatus vehicle maintenance line I mentioned earlier. So I was proposing we decrease that by $5,000 again, because I'm not anticipating, some of the expenses we've accumulated over the last few years, because the 97 pumper has moved on. It's not to say that something else catastrophic can happen to another vehicle, but that's a game we play. But I do feel, the truck, looking at the history, Sharon has provided me all that information, and the 97 has certainly cost the town a great deal of money over the last 5 years to keep that vehicle on the road. And I think we'd be very safe to lessen that by $5,000 this next year.
Brett, question on that. When we talked about sending the Spartan down the road back in September, August?
Yes.
And we toyed around with having you and your officers look into trading looking at the two big ticket trucks, and they were scheduled for every 25 years, and moving them possibly to 20-year replacement. And has any work done on that, and where would that increase the capital vehicle reserve fund? You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think your question is, you're asking about replacement, and are we looking at 25 years? We're looking at 20 years, and that's really it's a moving target. The funding for such purchases are laid out in our capital apparatus plan, which I don't think we're going over tonight, Valerie. Certainly there'd be a time to go over those items, but as we continue to evolve as an emergency services organization, and we look at what tools we need to do our jobs, what we have in our fleet today may not be something we need down the road. I'm not suggesting we get rid of any one truck, but we have, as we've done in the past, perhaps we look into consolidation, 2 vehicles into one, getting our biggest bang for the buck.
I guess what I was looking for when we do the capital was, are we going to look at we know the first 5 years cost us almost nothing to own a truck versus the last 5 years, between 20 and 25 years. And if we cut it back to 20 and we saved, I'm going to say $30,000, could we put that into the bond payment of replacing trucks every 20 years instead of 25?
You mean
capital plan? That's a capital budget for a different discussion. But, I thought we possibly would be looking at replacing trucks, the bigger trucks, every 20 years, not 25.
Yeah, it's certainly a discussion I want to have, look forward to having with you folks. But Valerie, we're not having that tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're
Okay.
going to begin talking about capital projects on the 3rd, January 3rd.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's excellent question. I'm glad it's on your radar. I'm glad you're thinking about it, and I do look forward to that conversation.
Okay. I really don't have any big problem with. I mean, you're looking at a 2.3 budget increase. I think it's a good budget. I would like to get more on my own thing, the answer, and I will help work on it with the bond payment. If the interest rates aren't going to get any lower than they are right now, they're almost giving money away. Not quite, but they're almost. And
So
I'd like to just lock that in now.
So Ian, you guys, I mean, if you gotta cut me off, you cut me off, but I don't know if you wanted to come back to the conversation. I'm really happy to hear what Joel just said. Like, wow, I feel really good. But
yeah, let's have a little bit of detail. yeah, on number 6, the labor line, and your thoughts for that and the changes
sure.
with that, since Val and I know about that, but the rest of the select board may not.
Okay, so Valerie, would it be okay if I shared that?
Yep,
That
yeah, I think that'd be
spreadsheet.
very helpful. Yes.
All right, okay, awesome. You guys see that? I'll blow it up for you. Okay, so some of you have history. You've been on the select board, and you recall from I think it was 3 years ago. We talked about how we're paying our firefighters, and you know, are we in compliance with the Fair Labor Standard Act? I'm sure you folks are all aware. Just quick background. So currently today, Bristol firefighters are paid, it's a few cents more than the state's minimum wage, where firefighters are paid $11 per hour for each emergency incident in which they respond to. Obviously, if we don't respond to the incident, we're not compensated for it. So at the end of each incident, you know, there's a roster, a run report that's done that calculates the time that people had at that particular incident. And at the end of the year, that's how we pay our firefighters. We don't pay our firefighters for the training they do. We don't pay our firefighters for any of the other duties and tasks we expect them to perform in the performance of their duties. At the end of the year, you know, I'd say the average firefighter, you know, depending on their activity level, you know, maybe they'll take home after taxes a check of, you know, $500, $600, $700, $800, $900, depending on their year. But according to the Fair Labor Standard Act, when an employer, a municipal employer, such as the town of Bristol, pays an employee an hourly rate, they've created that employee-employer relationship. And when we do that, what that says is that we're supposed to pay that employee for all the services that they perform, you know, in the performance of their duties, such as required trainings, equipment inspections that are a part of their jobs, you know, things of that nature. And I'm sure Michelle and Joel, you probably recall this from a few years ago, having this conversation, you know, about breaking down. We looked at several different options. We looked at paying firefighters for all those things they're doing, what I just mentioned: training, emergency calls, you know, the cleaning they do, the shoveling they do, the snow, versus a tiered approach to compensation, which is what you're looking at in front of you. And another option we were talking about was paid per call. And when I say we call ourselves today paid per call firefighters, because we're paid for each call we respond to. But by definition of a true volunteer firefighter that's in compliance with the Fair Labor Standard Act, if you were to pay a firefighter per call, as an example, you would pay a firefighter $20 an hour per call, whether that firefighter was gone 10 minutes or 6 hours and 10 minutes, they would get $20. That's a true paid per call firefighter. That's how you define that. But again, today we're paid $11 an hour for the services we provide. And because we're not compensated for the other things, we're currently not in compliance. So I'm not here tonight to say we got to do this. I'm just here tonight to put in front of you a proposal after a lot of thought, a lot of consideration, a lot of discussions with my officers on just an idea. And Valerie and Ian asked me the question today, you know, have you brought this forward to the larger membership yet? And I haven't, because I don't, until I get some direction, you know, I kind of want to understand where the select board wants to go before I open up this can of worms. I mean, I would like to think the majority of our fire department, they're not going to be concerned how they're compensated, because I haven't met one of them that are here for a paycheck yet. You know, it's obviously nice at the end of the year, a few extra bucks in your pocket to help with some of the expenses associated with what they do, you know, for their time, their sacrifices, but and if I get direction from you folks, whether it be tonight or at a later date, I certainly will make a pitch, just put this in front of the larger department so they understand what is being considered. But this tiered approach, what I've done is I've simply broken the call responses down into these 5% increments. And obviously, depending on the volume of calls you respond to, that's how you're compensated. Now, in the left-hand column where it says paid per call, tier 1 through 11, and then in parentheses, you'll see it says average of 2 firefighters, average of 4 or 5, those numbers vary. So based on essentially 4 or 5 years of data that I collect, this is how our firefighters fall in, on their average years, this is what it looks like. How many firefighters respond to a particular percentage of calls. So that's where those numbers came up with. And those numbers throughout those tier 1 through 11, those average firefighter numbers totals 35 firefighters. We're currently at 34 today, our roster is, but that represents 35 firefighters. So that's a tiered approach to compensating firefighters. So it's a set dollar amount. You go to, if you go to 30 to 34.9% of the calls in a 12-month period, you will receive $700. Now, if you take that money and you put it up against getting paid $11 an hour, which doesn't take into consideration, the call that you actually got paid 2.5 hours for at $11 an hour because you were there 2.5 hours. These numbers in many cases they're about the same. In some cases, it might be a few bucks more, but we're not really giving much more compensation in this proposal than we're currently giving our firefighters today. This simply, it's more uniform. It's in compliance with the Fair Labor Standard Act. And honestly, for budgeting purposes, it's a number that it's not going to move as much. I gave Valerie an example today. If we have that large incident that, assisting Vermont State Police with some search and rescue operation, or we're on Hogback Mountain for a 3-day forest fire, firefighters are being paid their hourly wage for all the hours they're working, deservingly so. However, you can see how incidents like that could really, put a shot into this number. That 27,000 could be more like 35,000. So this kind of controls it a little bit more. The reactions, thoughts, questions?
One of the things we also talked about was that in terms of the administrative paperwork side of things for each call, this structure would eliminate or significantly reduce all the accounting that would need to be dealt with for each call for each person.
Are you gonna have some upset firefighters?
What's that, Michelle? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
If you're gonna have some upset firefighters, because if they're, if you're getting paid hourly and they do spend a lot of time on calls, won't the amount they get
less?
Less?
Yes, absolutely. But
do you think they're gonna
hey, trust me. So hearing that statement, of course, at the end of the day, if I would have come into this meeting tonight, if I knew the select board would be totally on board with having a labor budget of about $50,000 to pay us for everything, sure, I'd love it. But we don't, unless we're willing to do that. This is just one of the other options we need to consider. That's all. But yeah, is it fair at the end of the day? No, it's not. But it's either pay us hourly for everything we do. And when I say everything, I have some firefighters who train literally hundreds of hours a year. Most of it has to do with their job, but what is actually required of them on an annual basis, and the performance in keeping their certifications up, it's minimal. It's like 30 hours. But yeah, it's a great question, Michelle. And trust me, this is difficult because when you do have that type of incident, where, you know, those 5 persons are standing out there on that road, babysitting that utility line for 5 hours and knowing, well, you're really only getting compensated for, you know, what I previously got compensated $11 for. Now I'm, instead of getting $55, I'm getting $11 for, you know, however many hours I stood out on the road. It's not fair. But these are our options. But you could also choose to just keep it as is. You know, that's obviously your prerogative. So I was made aware of this a couple years ago, and I brought it up, I know, last year, and I feel responsible to bring it up, to keep it on your radar. But again, if you folks don't want to think it's a problem, you don't want to treat it as a problem, I mean, that's your decision. I'm just putting forth something that does comply with the Fair Labor Standard Act.
Chief, I'm gonna ask you this question.
Sure.
And I don't think there's one guy or girl over there that would do this, but could you see that major structure fire come in anywhere here in town or out of town? And some of them know, well, I'm gonna get paid $11 to go for, and this is one I'm gonna skip. But the smoke in a building or CO going off, that's an hour call, I'm gonna go to that one because I'm gonna get the same amount of money. When we really need the whole team on the field, so to speak, that structure fire, are we gonna have the whole team there? You follow what I'm saying?
No, I follow what you're saying. And, you know, unfortunately, I don't think we have many personnel who think that way at all. I really don't.
I don't either.
You know, and if they do, well, unfortunately, maybe they shouldn't be on the team. If that's how they feel. You know, because it's all about sacrifices. This is what this is about. Not one of us knew we got compensated when we signed up to do this stuff. It's just, it was like a bonus. Like, oh, really? We get paid something? Great. But you are going to have those calls where, you know, you're out there for 5 or 6 hours and you're not being compensated what you'd be compensated today for it. I mean, I'm happy to look at.
Darla has a question. She's patiently waiting, but let her ask her questions. Then I have a question for you.
Thanks, Michelle. Sure. Bret, I'm just curious to know how some of our neighboring fire departments handle this situation. How are they paying their? Do you know how they're paying their staff and how that works?
No, I know. I think the Middlebury Fire Department, they're paid for calls, they're paid for their training. Is it a fixed amount, you know, per call? Like, you know, do they get $20 per call or is it $20 per hour? That I don't know. Virgins, I believe they get paid for calls. See, Virgins, Middlebury, and Bristol are the 3 municipal fire departments in Addison County. The other 14 departments are private entities, you know, who are supported, funded, you know, receive an appropriation from their town, but they're not a municipal fire department. You know, they're not directly accountable to like a board like I am to you folks. Mm-hmm. So how they compensate their people, in some instances, they don't compensate them at all. I mean, I know that for a fact. Not everybody is compensated.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand
if you'd like,
what the norm
if you'd like
is.
some more data, if you'd like some more data, I'd be happy to go dig some of that up so you can see what others are doing.
It'd be helpful in the decision-making process, Bret. I would appreciate that if you have the time to do that.
No, but I will.
Thank you. I appreciate that too.
I think that we've known about the compliance thing for a number of years, and I think it's something important that could potentially be harmful to us if it's something that we don't deal with. You know, part of this could be, you know, with this proposal here, and I know it changes what the number is, and your percentage is going to go up, but there's raising that amount, so it's not $11, it's something else, to make it sort of more equitable, since we're not that you're being forced to change this, but it's something that we need to seriously consider. Right. So perhaps that's a further discussion on this type of thing. You know, and that's knowing that we previously discussed what it would cost to pay everyone for everything that they do. You know, that's a much higher figure. And I know that that's something that we've struggled with in the past with budget meetings.
So, Brett, here's my question. I mean, you say, you know, if we'd come with the $50,000 to pay labor, well, I thought your budget line said 47, but my question is if we were, have you figured it out? And I think we've had this discussion and you might have figured it out already. If we paid for the required training, you know, Bristol Fire requires them to take 30 hours. So if you take 30 hours times 35 times $11 an hour, you know, what does that come? I mean, what are your trainings, 1 hour, 2 hours, you know, it depends on the day. What would that come up to as a budget for?
Yeah, so I did, Michelle, so 3 or 4 years ago when we did this exercise, I did do that, and I could pull it up, but I don't want to waste people's time right now. If I'm recalling it, my proposal was based on, okay, the Vermont Fire Service Training Council, to keep your pro board cert, requires you do X, Y, and Z every year, which, you know, essentially totals 24 to 30 hours per firefighter. You know, that's the minimum. It was like at the time, 3 years ago, it was like a $16,000 to $18,000 increase in the labor line to compensate everybody for those, you know, 30 hours of training a year, for responding to their calls for service, and to, you know, compensate them for, you know, their required, you know, equipment inspections 1 time a month, their facility duties, that type of stuff. Yeah, it was like a $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 increase. Okay. Which, you know, 4 years ago, our labor line was probably like $32,000. And, you know, so a number like 48 is ringing the bell for me, Michelle, what I came to back then.
That's for the training, or that was the.
And if you'd like to see those, yeah, if you guys would like to see such numbers again, and I hope you do want to see them again, I'm happy to put them together for you.
I mean, I don't want to see it tonight, but I know we had talked about it. I could come up with a number, and I just couldn't remember what that number was.
And to be honest with you, Michelle, the reason I didn't even come forward with that option was, in fairness, it's a different board than it was 3 or 4 years ago, but it wasn't a great reaction to the proposal because, I mean, obviously, as I just said to Ian and Valerie, you know, I'm very sensitive to increases in a budget. You know, it's going to happen along the lines. You know, things just go up by nature, but you know, when we're talking about significant increases that for something like this, you know, I just like to give it, you know, lots of consideration. I want to make sure I give you guys all the information you want so you can make an informed decision on what you really want to do moving forward. And so I will certainly come back, give it to you guys ahead of time so you can peruse over it, give it to Valerie, you know, all your options and what they look like and what that number really would look like at the end of the day.
Because I think part of that too, Brett, is that for me, I would want you to be comfortable proposing this to the department and to your members and your volunteers, because I don't want you feeling out of a sense of duty to get us out of the predicament that we're in with the VLSA, that you need to propose this and then you're going to have a lot of backlash, or you feel that this is something that you don't want to propose, but you're feeling that you're you're being forced to do that, but you feel that you need to do this to be able to put us in the right direction. So I think seeing those numbers would be useful, because then it just gives us another target that we can potentially hit or look at, depending on how the other budgets go.
Yeah.
It could also be one of those things we could do it in a step process. You know, maybe we do part of it this year, part of it next year, so it's not such a large chunk at one time. I mean, I don't know if that's capable or possible, but.
Yeah, I'll certainly, I could put together, you know, all your potential options. And if the option, when we're talking about the paying people on an hourly basis, I would use the number that I use, you know, we have today, the $11 an hour. Yeah. 11 is, I don't know what current state minimum wage is. I think it's just shy of $11. I just remember when we went through the budgeting, we rounded it up a few cents to make it an even $11. So that's the number I would use. I wouldn't be using like $15 an hour or something. I would use whatever, right around minimum wage.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brett, for taking the time
sure.
this
No,
evening
thank you.
and going through.
you.
I don't know if any board members have further questions for Brett, or any of the public attending has questions. I guess not. Terrific.
Great. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank
you,
you.
Brett.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Brett.
Okay, let's move on. Let me get back to my notes here. Let's see.
Chris
So
is online.
Yep, that's what I was thinking too. Thank you for waiting, Chris. We appreciate it. Yeah, so let's look at the planning and zoning budget. And I don't know if Chris or Val, you want to share
Chris,
that with
do
us
you
this
want me to
evening?
share, or do you want to do it?
If you can share the screen, I don't have it in front of me. I don't have my work computer with me.
Okay.
Okay, I shall do that. Let me get situated. Planning. I have a few windows open. Share screen. There we go.
Again, thanks for your patience, Chris.
Not a problem. I was actually at a meeting in Moncton, got that done, came here. It's all good. It's been a crazy night.
Okay, probably not a tremendous change from last year, but well, actually I see a few, but let's, you want to just give us a broad overview of it as opposed to line by line?
Sure. Probably the biggest thing you'll see is that I moved a few things around. The very bottom line was meetings in the past, and I just added that to the salary line. Because we pay our DRB and planning commission members per meeting. And instead of having that as a broken out line, in the past, we've been accounting those as salary anyways. So I just sort of lumped them all together in one big piece. So you'll see instead of the $1,800 budgeted and never spent, I actually moved it all into the salary line and accounted for it correctly for change.
And it's probably been the case over the last few years. You see that there are zeros in the
Yeah.
actual columns for that line item. It's probably because those expenses had been coded to salaries anyway, and we just didn't catch it.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
thought
feel
it
like
was around like-
every year we question that.
Yeah, so I cleaned that up so it isn't so odd. And the only other major increase you see is training. Past we had $200 in training, and that the only time that was ever used was by myself. I would try to get to a training, whether it's through GLCT or whatever. Both the planning commission specifically has requested training. And I would like to include the DRB in that this year and try to help coordinate getting some training in both municipal planning and or some of the nuances of subdivisions, PUDs, proper use of those tools. And we've had some disconnect occasionally in meetings where people aren't sure of what they can and can't do, how it should be applied, and just trying to make these boards A, efficient, and B, they provide our community an accurate, fair process. So that's really it. I mean, I added a basic increase on salary. I bumped that up a tiny bit. If you add all them together, I added a small percentage increase just for traditional inflationary reasons, but overall, I tried to keep everything as tight as I could.
So Chris, I have two questions. The advertising line, you don't think that should be higher? I mean, last year you spent $900, and that was just after the new unified regs went in, I think. So you're only partial year with the new unified regs. Isn't there more advertising because they have to deal with more?
It's all over the place, Michelle. It really depends on the number of applications in a year. I mean, I've had no problems bumping that to 9. I was trying to keep my budget as tight as I could. I have a little bit of money elsewhere I can move around if I absolutely had to, but yeah.
Okay. Well, that's my only concern was that, and how does the PC and the DRB get paid? Is that something you keep track and do they just get paid per meeting? They don't get paid like an annual fee, it's just per meeting?
Right, so at the end of the year, I calculate the number of meetings they attend. And then I send a spreadsheet over to Greg, now it used to be Jen, now it'll be over to Anthony, and it says they were in 12 meetings and they get their $5 per meeting and they cut them a check.
And Chris, part of that advertising, like if someone's going to build a big housing thing and you've got to put it in the paper for the developer's paying that fee, right, for that advertising? Isn't it?
Right,
Go ahead.
Right, when I created my fee structure, I actually included a publication allocation when I came up with the fee structure a while back. You also see that I raised my revenues up this year to sort of reflect a more realistic number based on, now that we changed our fee structures once we implement subdivision regs, and it should generate more revenue. I mean, we see that in 2021, we had a pretty good, decent number. We're on track to hit that 11 grand that I've budgeted because things haven't slowed down. We got a lot in the pipeline. So.
I thought we had increased the per meeting. We had said we should increase the per meeting from $5 to $10, especially with the DRB having to deal with more.
I thought
Did we do?
too.
Val, do you remember that?
I do not remember it, but I do think it's a very good idea, if not overdue.
$5 is like, oh my God. Get a break.
And I firmly support increasing that as well.
I think we need to do that. I mean, $10 is not that much either, but.
Yeah, I thought we did. I thought it was a 10 and then a 15 for the chair, but maybe it was a 10 for the chair and it was still 5 for the other members.
We did 10 and 15 was for the select board. That was done by vote at the town meeting one year, but.
Yeah, 20 years.
No, just a couple years ago, but, you know, so, I don't know, at least they should at least get $10 and maybe the chair gets 15. I'm fine with that too, but that's at least make it worth their while to get there.
Hey, Chris.
That was actually a recommendation that I had. When I figured out my salary number, I'd actually based that on increasing their wage as well. So that was the proposal I wanted to come to you all with. I wasn't sure if now was the right time or wait till we were out of budget session and things were a little calmer and we could deal with that for the next round. But I had, when I calculated that out, I was factoring in increasing it to 10 a meeting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we need to do that at this point put it in the budget, make sure it's in there.
Okay. Valerie or Chris, we know Chris, Kevin was in earlier saying that it looks like they're going to get a $900 or $9,500 grant over a 2-year period. Now, where does that fit in there? And then do we have to factor in lines that are going to pay out for that grant, pay stuff out? I don't.
Right. It's always been weird how they've dealt with grants for the planning commission. Somehow those don't end up in my revenue line, but we do pay out of when you see line 19, the planning services. When we have a grant match, that's usually where those dollars come from.
Okay.
But isn't the planning, is the Addison County Regional Planning fee? Or is that different? Isn't the planning services line, isn't that the Addison County Regional Planning fee we pay them? We have
No, that's a whole separate section in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Val, you started to say something earlier?
Yes, to answer your question, Joel, the treasurer's office sets up a totally separate fund with unique number to where all the revenues and expenses get coded to. So it's all in one place.
Okay. But didn't Kevin also say some of that 95 they wanted to use for more training?
No,
No?
no, he said they wanted to increase the budget line for training that they wanted to do.
Okay.
They were looking for, yeah.
Or get a speaker or something to come in some classes.
Well, that would be part of the training fees, you know, they would
Yep.
try to find, if they couldn't get something that they, VLCT did or something, they might.
Yeah,
try
that's why I
find
went to
somebody
$1,000.
Yep.
Okay. Excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, I think this looks fine. I think if we, so the number you have for salary, did you say that is an increase, or you're thinking about doing that and that number would change?
No, that included the increase to $10 a meeting.
Okay, terrific.
And also the minute taker.
Yes.
Yeah,
I level funded that at the same rate that we paid out last year for her expense.
Okay. Any other questions for Chris?
And just to point out too, with those adjustments and plus the anticipated increase in revenue, it is a decrease of over 3% net to the taxpayers anticipated.
oh,
Good.
we're happy to see that.
Yeah.
You can't beat that.
Oh,
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Val, how do you want to do the,
I will pull up the listers.
okay.
Wait a second here. Let's see here. All right. There's the listers.
Okay.
So let's see. The main areas of increase are in compensation. Let's see if I can move this over. So compensation and software supplies. They're anticipating needing to gear up for another reappraisal sometime soon.
that's so depressing.
And they
What is
beefed
that?
up the professional services fees in case we do get an assessor on board. So they just kind of rounded that up a little bit. And they figured that if they don't get an assessor on board, then their compensation would come out of that line, or at least somehow get balanced off.
Yeah,
So this number would increase if we don't get an assessor on board, or the expense would increase, but it would balance off.
Would you think then, Valerie, just throwing this out, could that line 6 say salaries / assessor, professional assessor, and then leave the professional fees at maybe $1,000? So if you have to, I'm gonna, years when I was in there, we'd have to get a consultant to come in when we had maybe a Pomelo Real Estate or Act or down there took us to court, so we had to get some professionals having it reappraised again. And so it all come out of the same line. Payment is payment, salaries, whether a professional assessor does it or our listers do it. And we could put it all up in the salary line. What does that mean?
The main reason I would recommend against that, I think, is because the salaries, they're kind of, they're considered employees, even though they're elected.
Okay.
And so there you have the workers' comp, you have the FICA, whereas professional fees, that's a different category of expense.
I really think maybe have a conversation with them again, is the professional fees is if you have to hire an appraiser to come in and do a specialized job or something. That's what we had that line for. You know, do one, you had an appeal going all the way to Supreme Court. You had to get some professional fee, consulting work. And hiring a professional appraiser to take over the office, you know, 1 day a week or so, I think it's much different. I think that at all, there should be a professional fees there of maybe $1,000, and then under line maybe between 8 and 9 there, in the line there saying professional appraiser or
So
appraiser.
if we move the $21,000 up there, then
In
we're
there, I
gonna,
get what you're saying there, not put it there, but put it
because this
down.
is a formula, 7.75%
Right.
of that salary figure goes to Medicare.
Right, but put it up there where people see it, that, well, we can explain that. I think professional fees and an appraiser to come in and run the office are two different things. That's what I'm trying to say.
But I think, I get what you're going at, but you could say professional fees slash
Appraiser or
assessor.
For services,
Assessor.
professional services.
could be that, yeah.
I mean, because if we were actually to hire an assessor, then their salary would wind up going up in the salary line. If they're an employee, if they're a subcontractor, then it's then it would be contracted services.
Right.
Well, I don't think we would pay FICA and Medicaid and workman's comp on a professional, on a appointed assessor, would we?
They would be hired, they would be appointed.
Or a hired, are they then an employee of the town or a
That's what I
contracted
said.
position?
If they're an employee, we pay on them. If they're contracted services, then you wouldn't.
If they're an independent contractor,
Water
we wouldn't have to pay the workers' comp,
Right.
You wouldn't or would?
would
You
not.
wouldn't, Beth? Not? Okay. I just know when we use professional services, we got taken to the Supreme Court twice and we had to use that line.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions on this?
Does Mark think that your actual in 2019-20 for mat maintenance was over by a little bit? Does he think still it's, I mean, I noticed you haven't spent anything or you haven't gotten the bill yet. 750 last year you budgeted or didn't spend anything. Is with all the splits, you know, behind the fire station and oncoming and that, is that gonna go up or about the same? He's budgeted the
don't
same.
know.
I don't think he submitted anything this year yet to have it done.
Correct. I was just gonna say that last year they didn't do any real mat maintenance. This year they're gonna need to do some serious mat maintenance.
Okay.
Did you say serious mat maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, we gotta play a little bit of catch up. It won't be, I mean, it's not gonna be that much more expensive. It's just the mats need to be updated sooner than later.
More than you did in 1920, Chris? I mean, it's hard to say. I know it's 2 years ago, but.
I'm just looking at the numbers there, hang on. Yeah, I think it's gonna be, because we're sort of kind of gonna play catch up for a loss of a year there, Joel. But I don't think it's gonna be, it's not like 2 years combined. I think you're gonna look at sort of like the 1920, the 19 to 20 budget level around $1,000, I think would be okay.
Okay,
That was my question.
What's the software increase? Is that just email and things like that or a specific software?
Well, the software program is changing. I'm not familiar with what the costs are associated with that. And the
Okay.
licensing is probably different.
So does that include that change or it's
I
going to
believe
change?
so.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have further questions. Does anyone else?
No.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Let's take a look. You also had a health insurance matters and other sections.
Oh, right. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm just to point out that we're in the open enrollment period, and I think employees are generally satisfied with the plan that they've had for the past year or two. No changes are proposed, and also just given the timing that we're in, and the bandwidth that we have, that we're proposing status quo for this upcoming budget. including
And as
the-
Valerie pointed out, our premium went down too.
Yeah, more than 6%.
How is that
Hooray.
possible? I thought premiums only went up. That's what I discovered. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Is it because of the at the federal level, right? Or no?
I don't know why. It's a
Oh.
Blue Cross Blue Shield thing.
Oh, okay.
And I double checked to make sure that I didn't make a mistake. And no, they definitely went down.
Wow.
When we get into the personnel stuff later on, we'll look more closely at how things break out.
With regard to the plan, so you said that everyone, at least as far as you know, everyone is happy with their plan. If someone wasn't, I mean, do you, in terms of that change being made, do you wait for an employee to come and say, I would like something different? Do they have the option to do that?
I
How is
don't
it-
believe so.
Okay,
I don't think it's a la carte. I think it's a group
Okay.
plan.
but now is the opportunity if employees did have questions, did have concern, or want changes potentially, to talk to us now as we go through the discussing
Right, to
this.
see if everybody else is on board with changing the plan.
Okay.
But I think everybody seems to be, at least I've not heard anything otherwise.
Okay, that's good to know.
Aren't we cutting close though? Don't they have to be enrolled by the end of December, or does our time frame change because we're on a fiscal year?
It's usually the end of December, but Blue Cross Blue Shield somehow extended that to the end of January.
Okay, if there are no questions, any further questions, we'll move on to item 6. Consider adoption of residential anti-displacement and relocation plan.
Hopefully folks had a chance to glance at that. It's virtually identical to the plan that was approved in 2005. But the reason this is on the agenda is because hopefully you caught wind of the fact that the firehouse apartments receive full funding from the Vermont Community Development Program. And one of the conditions of the grant funding is having this anti-displacement plan in place. And even though one was adopted in 2005, it's good practice to revisit and kind of update that, re-adopt it over time. And it's an opportunity for select board members and others to be familiar with it and aware that it exists.
Okay, so let me ask some questions, because I'm reading this going, boy, I don't totally understand this, but so does this mean that if the town, any project that has the VCDP funds associated with it, if something were to happen to that building, those apartments, we have to help them relocate them?
If the units if these are low and moderate income units being lost as a result of a CDBG funded project, yes.
So, but that's only if we were to actually destroy them, demolish them, whatever. If a hurricane came through or a tornado came through and took them out, then that's not on us. I mean, I'm trying to, okay. So this is really, if we have a conscious effort to remove those apartments, then we would be responsible for replacing them somewhere.
Correct. And presumably the project budget would accommodate that, would include all of those expenses and the hassle factor and all that stuff in that.
When I was reading this, I had a little panic attack on how can we do that? So I was thinking it was like, okay, if they get destroyed by fire,
Yeah, they get destroyed by
we
fire.
have to like find them somewhere new for them to go.
Right. Yeah. It's not easy. It's a tough commitment. But
Well,
I don't.
If they get
In
destroyed
this
by
particular,
fire,
say that again.
if they get destroyed by fire, we have to find somewhere for them to go.
No, only if it actively taken out of service as a direct result of the funded activity.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, given the proximity to the fire station, at least with the firehouse apartments, I hope they don't get destroyed by fire.
Right.
Right. No, but I wanted to just clarify. So really what they're saying is if the town of Bristol decides to take those buildings down because for some reason they need it for something else, we would then be responsible for finding.
Right.
either putting
Or
up
if they're, or if they're being,
whatever.
or if they're being proposed to be upgraded, and if the current occupants have to be temporarily housed somewhere else while their units are being renovated, that's another
Just like-
expense.
Right, which they did at the Hunt.
They
when
did it to Hunt
renovated the
Farm,
Hunt Farm.
and we weren't involved. I don't know, that was
No, we weren't.
back
because
in
Addison
'94,
County-
that was all done, built.
Addison County Community Trust did that.
I mean, if this was, let's play this out. I know it's not gonna happen for the public who's listening. But if we said, well, those were built in 10 years, we're gonna build a new town barn and we want it, a new police station, we want it right next to the fire station across the road. Eminent domain, we're taking those 20 units. We would have to displace, we would displace them, then we would have to pay to have them. That, I
If-
think,
If the project is done with CDBG funding, with money,
right, right,
yeah,
okay.
that's
That-
Okay, then I'm
the
okay.
connection.
I'm okay signing it.
I had to talk her off the ledge here earlier.
Right.
Understand that.
I mean, let's not displace anybody. Let's keep
Yeah.
those
Right.
apartments here for the
I don't
foreseeable
foresee
future.
that happening.
Right. Well, I'd entertain a motion.
I mean,
I think
I
animal-
have a quick question from a public standpoint. I mean, when I look at line item 2. I'm
What's
not, sorry, it's the, where it says second in, a little
Second.
higher
That's-
salary, please.
The vacation on a map.
Yeah, displaced, funded with VCDP funds.
Right, so if there's a project that was funded with those funds, the municipality will provide relocation assistance.
That's assuming, Chris, if we take them out of service, basically. If the town consciously says we're removing those low to moderate income households and use VCDP funds for it, then we would have to provide those.
The next line says that, the second, I would just be leery of where it says second, but that's just me reading it. There's no qualifiers in that section. The third one, there's definitely qualifiers.
So in other words, Chris, I think what I hear you saying is that, for example, the firehouse apartments will be funded with, in part, through VCDP funding. If 20 years from now, the town wants to do something else with that property in whatever eminent domain, to put up an amusement park or something, then the town would be obligated, because there's VCDP money in that project, even 20 years later, that the town would be on the hook for relocating those people?
No, it says the municipality will provide relocation assistance to all low to moderate income households displaced by activities assisted with funds under the VCDP. So if the folks were displaced because in the large apartment building, there was flooding in the second floor and 12 units were unusable, if I was a good attorney, couldn't I chase that and say, hey, they were displaced, the municipality's on the hook?
Well, the
By
way I read that,
activities,
Chris,
I think activities assisted with funds, I think, is a key part of
Right.
that sentence.
I think it also states relocation assistance. It doesn't mean we're going to pay for them to live somewhere, that we would
Yeah, might
offer
cut them a check
assistance
for
to them to
$3,000.
find. Yeah, we would offer assistance to them to find another place to live.
And in that instance, that wasn't the town doing the destruction, so really, we're not, it's kind of the same place if it burned down,
Right.
not on the
Right.
town.
Right.
It is
Random
quite
acts
broad.
of mishap aren't included.
It is quite broad, though, and as Chris said, it does. The fact that he caught that, or is thinking that way, we need to be careful, I think.
The language
it-
hasn't changed since 2005.
Right, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be updated
Right.
now, because there's lots of language that needs to be
Right.
changed that hasn't changed in the past, and that's what we have been doing on various things, like the water ordinance.
Well, I'm not sure what latitude we have to change
Okay.
this, because this was provided by the funding agency.
I guess if we're able to, maybe just ask some specifics about that line, just for our own safety. But I would entertain a motion if it was just that one thing is the only thing that we had concern about.
Valerie, Peaker's the only one to know about this because he was around in 2005, but did our town attorney write this up?
No, this came from.
No, it's provided by the funding agency.
Wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, because I wondered if that couldn't say with funds under the VCPDP, if available, assist with funds, like Chris makes a good point there. If the basement over there, that new complex in 2 years gets flooded and there's 4 units gone.
That wouldn't be, there would not be a project funded with, assisted with funds under the VCDP. That would be just a random mishap that would not be relevant in this situation.
I guess I'm reading more into this. I was reading that the buildings are all going to be built with VCDP funds. So if we have to displace them, we're really am I reading that wrong?
That's what I was saying, if the whole complex is you're using VCDP funds for that, then if something happens, if the town literally does something to them to displace them, then we're on the hook. Are you
I have a
reading it as?
question.
Sharon?
If this is from 2005, is there a more current version that
This is the most current version. But I compared it with the one from 2005 and they're the same.
We have our town attorney look it over.
I don't know that we need that, but I think, my gut reaction initially was, oh my God, we're on the hook for a lot of things. And since Chris brings it up, then maybe we need just to have them clarify this, say, look, this is.
Well, we do have time.
Yeah.
We're not under the gun to do this. I just wanted to get it out of the way. And then we had a light enough agenda.
Because we've had questions about that, let's get that clarified and let's push it to the next meeting.
Okay, so that would be January 10th.
If we can get an answer, because then it's just we can knock that out once we hear back from that.
No problem.
Kevin can answer that.
Okay. Anything else with regard to that, Val?
Nope.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's see. Let's check a look at our time here. 2:38. Okay.
Only the July 26th and August 16th minutes are posted and available.
Okay.
And we'd already approved the November 22nd.
I make a motion to approve July 26th and August 16th with, I know I at least gave changes, and I think Darla put some changes in.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at them.
Okay, motion. We have a second.
Okay.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, authorize accounts payable warrant, any liquor licenses.
There are no liquor licenses.
No liquor licenses.
And what was the special events catering permit?
That was for the fire department event next month, January 15th.
They're monthly, they're annual.
Their annual. Yep.
Okay, 9, select board roundtable. Joel. Oh, sorry, what was that, Joel?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Michelle.
You threw him off. Usually you have something.
No, I know. I got confused. I'm sorry.
And I'm good.
Okay, Darla.
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate the rec department. They did a great selection of things for families this the holiday season. I got to take part in the wagon rides this weekend. That was really fun with friends, and they've done a great job. And I know they're not here tonight, but I wanted to have a shout out to them.
I actually saw the trolley rides on the things to do on the news the other day. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was cold.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool. Yes.
Anything else, Darla? I have just one item, and that's to do, we were asked, or at least discussed a couple weeks ago about masking, just because we, townwide masking and things like that. And I'm wondering if we want to revisit that maybe in the new year, since we've had the Omicron variant coming and it's far more transmissible. I'm not really for a townwide, just because of the resources that we have and the ability to enforce that. But I do see that we have the ability to ask members of the public to be masked going into town spaces like Holly Hall or Howden Hall, places like that, or even the library. So I'm wondering if we want to revisit that and just see what the numbers are. Obviously it's here, it's been detected in Burlington, we've had cases of it, so it's going to become very dominant very quickly. And I'd like to get on top of that and just be able to protect, especially staff members of the town. And I'm not saying that staff members necessarily need to wear masks themselves, because it's a sort of a small group, a small pod, as it were, but maybe looking at this, anyone, entering into the town offices wear masks, whether you're vaccinated or not. I just wanted to get people's thoughts on that quickly, if we wanted to discuss that sooner rather than later.
I think it's a good idea to have a discussion scheduled on it, just because we don't know where it's going to go at this point. And right now the numbers are climbing.
Yes. And there are definitely cities that are having thousands of infections, just from this new variant, because it's so transmissible, like 2 to 3 times what the Delta variant was. So I'm worried if we don't talk about it now, then perhaps, people are getting sick that we could have protected if we were unable to enact this, at least in our small amount of public buildings.
Right. And after holidays, there's been a surge every time. So
Right.
it might be a really good time to take a look at it again.
Okay. 10, town administrators report.
And I just wanted to let you guys know, I told you, sorry.
That's okay.
Monday, May 10th, Monday's all in January, right? Every Monday?
Right.
The 10th, I'll be late, and the 31st of Monday, I will not be here.
And we won't have a meeting on the 31st.
And how about February 7th? Monday the 7th, that's the first Monday.
Well, we do the second, don't we do the
Do we
second
second
and
and
fourth?
fourth?
We
So
do the second and the fourth,
budget we put to bed, so
right.
probably go back to 2 meetings.
Yeah, in February, it's the 14th and the 28th.
Okay, so the only meeting I will not be making is Monday the 31st.
We won't have a meeting that day.
That's great. Then the 10th, I'll be late.
Okay.
I have a junior high to take to Rutland, but I should be here by 7 o'clock. And not, if that's a 6 o'clock start, I'll be late.
No, that's 7 o'clock.
That's a 7, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Town administrators report.
Just 2 things. Got notice today that the solar project at the landfill is expected to go live on Wednesday. I don't know exactly what time, but I have no new information about the trash that was excavated from their drainage pond area. So no news there. And then in my TA report, in the listing of upcoming meetings, I had the January 24th meeting listed as starting at 6 o'clock, but it's 7. It's correctly listed elsewhere, but not there.
Okay. All righty.
You said, wait a minute, I'm sorry, Val, you said it starts at 6 or at 7?
The 24th starts at 7, but in the list of upcoming meetings, it's listed as 6.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, our
On that
only
last
6
page.
our only 6 p.m. meetings are January 3rd and January 17th.
Correct, the off meetings, the special meetings. And
Okay.
the commitment is to just do budget topics on
Yeah.
those, not sneak a bunch of other things in there.
If we can, if that's even possible.
I'll do my best.
Okay, Thank you,
Look
Val.
to it, Valerie.
Other business correspondence reports, correspondence received.
Oh, you'll notice that one of the solar project updates is from November. It's just because I overlooked including it in a prior packet.
Okay.
Just catching up.
Well, it's gonna go live on Wednesday, huh?
That's what they say.
Get my
Not
extension.
sure what that's
cord
gonna
on
look like.
those wires and make sure I get some power in. When I hear it going by the house.
If I walk by, then if I trip over a cord, I'll know whose house it's going to. Yeah, that's an exciting project. I know that they're going to do a sort of, they were going to do an event at Holly Hall on the 8th of January. I know that they've moved it to Zoom only, I think, in anticipation of potential COVID increases, but it'll be an online Zoom. So perhaps we'll get more people attending just as a sort of celebration of having that. And I'm as a personal thing, I'm sort of working on a little video. I shot some drone footage with all the panels in. So I'm doing a little video for that, and we'll work with them on that. But I think, yeah, a lot of people are very excited. I mean, I think it's something that the Energy Committee should be congratulated on, especially Sally Burrell, sort of working on that project and sort of bringing it to the town. And then now we actually have a project that's almost online. So it's fantastic.
One more thing, I just for anybody who uses the RNL on Saturdays, they're not going to be here this Saturday, but they will be there at the town garage on January 1st.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
What, they're not going to be there on Christmas? Jeez.
And you guys, there's 3 items here to sign.
Okay.
There's also the pay orders, that thing that we appointed Valerie to everything under the sun. Ashland County Economic Development Corporation and
Okay.
check warrants for some other stuff.
And Darla, you got a bunch to sign.
Yeah.
I've got Christmas shopping to do tomorrow. I'll be down.
Okay.
Probably no executive session since we dealt with the board appointee at our
Correct.
meeting. Okay.
Yep. I do
Motion.
expect on the meeting on the 3rd, if we could start the meeting at 6 and have a half an hour executive session to begin personnel matters, and then at 6:30 move into the budget stuff, the public budget stuff.
So
I'm
much
okay
for
with that.
just doing budgets.
What was that, Michelle?
I said so much for just doing budgets.
Well, no, it's related. It's personnel related budget stuff.
Come on, Val's not trying to sneak in other stuff. Come on now.
We could
No,
we could
totally
start at
related.
5:30, right, Valerie? We could start at 5:30.
Just trying to
so we still
be,
do the budget.
No.
Just trying to be mindful of the staff folks' time at the end of a night. So trying
That's
to get
good.
stuff out early and so they can get out early.
Yeah, I think we can be accommodating and do that. I don't see an
That'd
issue
be
with that.
great.
Do I
Super.
have a motion to
Make a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Bye.
All those against? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you,
You
everyone.
guys
Thank
have a
you.
Merry Christmas.